A breeze blows through Rattlesnake Junction as the sun hangs low, casting long shadows across weathered storefronts. Today, those shadows hide a brewing storm that's about to break over this quiet town. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Clay Hawkins wipes down the counter of Maggie's general store, his calloused hands moving in practice circles across the worn wood. 20 years of the same motion, same routine, same peaceful life. The glass jars filled with candies and preserves catch the late afternoon light, casting colorful shadows on the shelves. A tin of coffee beans sits half open, filling the air with its rich aroma, a stark contrast to the tension about to unfold. The wooden planks outside creak under heavy boots, 5 pairs of them. The sound echoes through the quiet store like distant thunder. Regular customers know to step light on those loose boards, but these aren't regular customers. Leather-clad figures darken the doorway, led by Marcus Deadeye Thorne, whose silver spurs catch the afternoon light with each deliberate step. Behind him, 4 men spread out like wolves circling prey, their hands hovering near holsters decorated with notches, each mark a life claimed. "Well, ain't this a sight?" Deadeye's gravelly voice cuts through the silence rough as desert wind. Clay doesn't look up, continuing his methodical work. Fresh bullet holes mark Deadeye's duster, someone's recent failed attempt at justice. "Store's closing soon. Gentlemen, best make your purchases quick," Clay responds, his voice steady as mountain stone. A hollow laugh echoes through the store, bouncing off shelves stocked with ammunition, canned goods, and farming tools. "Ain't here for supplies, old man." Deadeye's boots scrape across the floor as he approaches, each step marking territory like a predator. "Word is you've been helping the sheriff track our movements. Playing messenger boy, ain't you? Keeping notes on who comes and goes?" Clay finally raises his eyes, pale blue meeting cold steel. His weathered face, lined with 20 years of sun and secrets, betrays nothing. 2 decades of maintaining his cover as just another shopkeeper have taught him patience. Nobody in Rattlesnake Junction knows about his past life as Lightning Hawkins, the man who once cleaned up 3 territories and put down some of the West's most notorious gangs. The wanted posters with his younger face have long since faded, but his skills remain sharp as ever, hidden beneath layers of carefully constructed normalcy. Through the window, Clay notices 4 more shadows moving outside, positioning themselves strategically, 9 against 1. His right hand aches slightly, an old tell from years of quick-draw fights he thought he'd left behind. The weight of his hidden Colt .45, buried beneath floorboards upstairs, seems to call to him through the ceiling. That gun had saved his life countless times before he buried it along with his old life. Deadeye's hand slams down on the counter, sending a jar of peppermint candy crashing to the floor. Glass shatters and striped candies scatter across wooden boards like dropped bullets. "Don't play dumb with me, old-timer. 3 of our operations got busted last month. Only common thread is you seeing our boys come through here. Watching, remembering, whispering to the law. Look here," Clay says, reaching slowly for a broom behind the counter. "I've got cleanup to do before closing. Whatever trouble you're looking for, you won't find it here." His fingers wrap around the worn wood, same length and weight as his old Colt, a fact that's kept him comfortable all these years. Deadeye leans in closer, tobacco-stained breath hot with threat. "Maybe we ought to send a message. Show folks what happens when they stick their nose where it doesn't belong." His gang members start knocking items off shelves, a methodical destruction that speaks of practiced intimidation. Flour bags split open, creating clouds of white dust. Preserved peaches shatter, their syrup mixing with spilled coffee beans. Through the window, Clay notices Mrs. Henderson hurrying her children inside the dress shop across the street. She's lived here long enough to smell trouble. The setting sun paints the sky blood red, casting long shadows through dusty windows. The store's clock ticks loudly, marking each moment of growing tension. "Last chance to walk away, friend," Clay offers, his voice carrying a weight his opponents can't quite place. "Sun's setting, and I've got inventory to count." His wedding band catches the light as memories flood back. The weight of the gun. The lives it took. the promise he made to Sarah to leave that life behind. Deadeye spits tobacco juice on the floor, the brown stain spreading like spilled blood. Funny, real funny, old man. You know what else is funny? How slow a person moves with a busted knee. He nods to a brute named Buck, who pulls out a wooden club studded with rusty nails. The man's scarred face splits into a yellow-toothed grin. Clay's mind races through scenarios, each one worse than the last. Breaking his cover means breaking his promise to Sarah. Staying passive means breaking his promise to protect the town. 20 years of peace hang in the balance as Buck steps forward, club raised high, shadow stretching across the counter like the hand of fate itself. The club whistles through the air, but Clay moves with a quickness that betrays his shopkeeper facade. In one fluid motion, he sidesteps Buck's swing, letting the club embed itself in the wooden counter. 20 years of muscle memory don't fade easily, no matter how deep you try to bury them. Now that, Clay says softly, was a mistake. His hand still grips the broom, but his stance has shifted imperceptibly. Gone is the stooped posture of a shopkeeper, replaced by something more dangerous, the ghost of a gunfighter's poise. The transformation, though subtle, fills the air with an electric tension. Deadeye's eyes narrow, catching the change. Hold up, Buck. He raises a hand, studying Clay with newfound interest. The shadows in the store grow longer as the sun continues its descent, turning the interior into a maze of dark corners and amber light. Dust motes dance in the remaining sunbeams, swirling like tiny stars in the growing darkness. Something ain't right here, Deadeye continues, taking a step back. His spurs jingle with the movement, a metallic whisper that seems to echo through the tense silence. Old man moves too clean. He signals his men, who spread out further, instinctively responding to their leader's caution. The floorboards creak beneath their boots, creating a symphony of tension. Clay keeps his eyes on Deadeye but tracks each man's position by sound and shadow. The Murphy twins near the ammunition shelf, their matching gun belts gleaming dully in the fading light. Jake, the snake, by the door, his scarred face half hidden in shadow. Buck is still wrestling his club free, cursing under his breath as the nails refuse to release their wooden prey. 2 more men outside the front windows, their silhouettes dark against the evening sky, and 3 more, presumably covering the back. He catalogs escape routes, angles, potential cover. Old habits surfacing like coins in disturbed water. Tell me something, Deadeye drawls, thumb brushing his holster. The leather is worn smooth from years of quick draws, each scuff mark telling its own story of violence. Have you ever heard of Lightning Hawkins? The name drops into the silence like a stone in still water. Outside, a dog stops barking, as if nature itself holds its breath. Clay's face remains impassive, but his mind races through memories like falling dominoes. The name he'd buried deeper than his gun now resurfaces, bringing with it the smell of gunsmoke and the taste of copper. Heard he died down Mexico way, he responds, voice neutral as summer clouds. Long time ago. Deadeye's laugh lacks humor, scraping through the air like boot leather on gravel. Funny thing about legends, they have a way of surviving. Before I rode with the Shadow Creek gang, I ran with the Vasquez brothers down in New Mexico territory. Year was 74, summer hot enough to fry eggs on saddle leather. Had a friend there, a fella named Rodriguez. Told me a story about Lightning Hawkins that stuck with me all these years. Clay's hand tightens imperceptibly on the broom handle, wood grain familiar as an old friend's handshake. He remembers Rodriguez, the only survivor of that gunfight in Santa Fe. The man had thrown down his gun and surrendered, earning mercy that his companions hadn't. Clay can still see the fear in Rodriguez's eyes, the way his hands shook as he pushed his pistol away. Rodriguez said Hawkins moved like a rattler striking. No tell, no warning. Said he took down 6 men before they could clear leather. Deadeye's eyes never leave Clay's face, searching for any flicker of recognition. Also said Hawkins had a peculiar way of standing when trouble came, feet set just so, like he's ready to dance, a stance learned in 100 gunfights, refined through rivers of blood. The late afternoon light streams through the windows, casting lines across the floor like jail bars. Clay realizes he's shifted his weight to the balls of his feet, the same stance that once earned him his nickname. He forces himself to slump slightly, but it's too late. Deadeye's eyes glitter with dark understanding. Interesting thing about that stance, Deadeye continues, voice dropping lower. His words float through the dusty air like smoke. Men don't learn that from minding a store. That there's a gunfighter's stance, that's the stance of a man who's danced with death so many times they're on first-name terms. The air grows thick with potential violence. Outside, the street has emptied entirely, shopkeepers quietly ushering customers to safety. Even the birds have gone quiet, as if nature itself senses the coming storm. The only sounds are the steady tick of the clock and Buck's frustrated attempts to free his club, the wood protesting with each pull. "I'm just a shopkeeper," Clay says, but the words ring hollow even to his ears. The facade he's maintained for 2 decades starts to crack like sun-baked earth before rain. Each passing moment strips away another layer of his carefully constructed identity. Deadeye circles the counter, boots leaving marks in the spilled flour. "You know what's peculiar about this town? How it changed 20 years back. Used to be wild as a Mustang, then suddenly got peaceful. Right around the time you showed up, ain't that something?" Clay's memories flood back unbidden. The day he rode into Rattlesnake Junction, Sarah beside him in the wagon, her green eyes bright with hope. They'd chosen this place because it needed help, not with guns, but with honest commerce. A proper store, Sarah had said, could civilize a town faster than any lawman. The building had been nothing but weathered boards and broken dreams back then, much like Clay himself. "Times change," Clay responds, watching Deadeye's reflection in the glass cabinet. The Murphy twins have positioned themselves by the back door, their matching silver revolvers catching the dying light. Jake, the snake, edges closer to the ammunition shelf, his scarred face twisted in anticipation. 9 guns and his Colt might as well be in Mexico for all the good it does him upstairs, buried under the floorboard where Sarah used to read by lamplight. Deadeye picks up a tin of tobacco, turning it in his hands. The metal gleams dully like an old bullet casing. "Got another interesting story about Lightning Hawkins. Man had a wife, they say. Pretty thing named Sarah." The tin drops from his fingers, clattering against the floor with deliberate malice. Shame what happened to her. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Clay's knuckles whiten around the broom handle, old calluses finding familiar grip positions. That name, his Sarah's name, in Deadeye's mouth, feels like desecration. The memories surge stronger now. Sarah's smile, as they built the store shelf by shelf. Her quiet strength during the drought years when they fed half the town on credit. Her final days in the doctor's house as fever took her, leaving Clay alone with his promises and regrets. "Story goes," Deadeye continues, savoring each word like bitter whiskey. "Hawkins quit the gun after she died. Just disappeared. Some say guilt ate him alive, knowing his reputation brought killers to his door, knowing she died because of who he was." He pauses, studying Clay's face. "Fever's a funny thing, ain't it? Sometimes it's natural. Sometimes it's helped along by folks wanting revenge." The evening light catches the wedding band on Clay's finger, the gold worn smooth by years of love and loss. Sarah's last words echo in his mind. "Find peace, my love. But remember, sometimes peace needs protecting." She'd known him better than he knew himself, understood that a man can't completely bury his nature no matter how deep he digs. "Interesting stories," Clay manages, his voice steady despite the storm inside. Each word feels like a bullet loaded into a chamber. But they're just that, stories. Deadeye's laugh is cold as winter iron. "Maybe, but here's something ain't no story. Week ago we hit a bank in Millbrook. Among the papers I found something curious." He pulls out a yellowed wanted poster, unfolding it carefully. The paper crackles like dry leaves, brittle with age but preserved with obvious care. "Pictures fade some, but their eyes, they don't change much, do they?" The poster shows a younger face, clean-shaven and hard-eyed. A face that used to stare back at Clay from every sheriff's office in 3 territories. The reward, $1,000 for Lightning Hawkins, dead or alive. Wanted for the killing of the Vasquez brothers and their gang. Clay remembers every face from that day, every shot fired, every life ended in a dance of smoke and thunder. Kept this poster 20 years, Deadeye reveals, thumb tracing the faded ink. Rodriguez gave it to me before he died. Said to watch for their eyes. Said they're the kind you don't forget. Cold as mountain lakes and twice as deep. The kind that see death coming and don't blink. Through the window, Clay sees the town he's protected quietly for 2 decades. The schoolhouse he helped build, boards cut by his own hands. The church where Sarah lies buried, her headstone catching the last rays of sun. The families who trust him with their business and their secrets, who've made him part of their lives without knowing the blood on his hands. You've been studying that poster a long time, Clay observes, noting how the other men have subtly shifted positions, creating clear firing lines. Their body language speaks of experience. These aren't common bandits, but killers who've learned their trade in blood. Must be important to you. Deadeye's face darkens like a thundercloud. Vasquez brothers were like family. Took me in when I was nothing but a hungry kid with a rusty gun. 17 men died that day in Santa Fe. Rodriguez turned 18 a few years later. Fever, they said, but we all knew. Guilt killed him slowly. Guilt of being the only one Lightning Hawkins let live. The truth of that day in Santa Fe weighs heavy as lead. The Vasquez gang had been planning to raid a school full of children. Clay had stopped them, but the cost, 17 lives in under 2 minutes, had nearly broken him. It was the last time he'd drawn his gun in anger, the day Lightning Hawkins died and Clay the shopkeeper was born. Deadeye paces the length of the counter, boots crunching on broken glass. But here's the real interesting part. While we were combing through those Millbrook bank papers, we found something else. Something that changes everything. He pulls out another document, this one crisp and new, its official seal gleaming in the fading light like a mocking eye. The paper trembles slightly in the evening air, streaming through the broken window. It's a deed transfer dated last week, bearing the official seal of Rattlesnake Junction. Below it, Clay recognizes his own signature, or rather, a masterful forgery of it. Each stroke perfectly mimics his hand, down to the slight tremor he'd developed after a bullet grazed his writing arm in '72. Even the way he loops his Ys, a habit Sarah had always teased him about, is perfectly captured. Seems someone's been busy, Deadeye continues, tapping the paper with a yellowed fingernail. Transferring store ownership to one Sarah Hawkins. Dead woman can't own property, which makes this mighty suspicious. Almost like someone knew trouble was coming, like someone's been watching us planning ahead. Question is, who's really pulling these strings? The revelation hits Clay like a physical blow. Someone had access to the town records, forged his signature with impossible precision. The store, Sarah's legacy, was being used as bait in a game he didn't even know he was playing. His eyes darted to the Murphy twins, noting their barely concealed grins. The younger one, Tom, touches the scar running down his neck. A souvenir from the Millbrook bank job, Clay realizes. His brother Jim adjusts his gun belt, the silver buckle catching the dying light. You see, Deadeye explains, laying the deed on the counter beside a broken jar of molasses. Word is there's a strong box, hidden somewhere in this store. The kind that might hold certain papers, documents that could cause trouble for folks like us. Documents that disappeared from that Millbrook bank right before we paid it a visit. He runs his finger through the spilled molasses, drawing patterns like a man mapping out graves. Clay's mind races through years of memories. The strongbox, Sarah's final secret. She'd installed it herself during that week he'd been away at the cattle auction. Just some family papers, she'd said, but her voice had carried an edge he'd never heard before. She'd made him promise never to open it unless absolutely necessary. In case of fire, she'd said, but her eyes had spoken different words. He'd respected her privacy, never questioning why his law-abiding wife would need such security. Now, watching Deadeye's men spread through his store like a slow poison, he wishes he'd asked more questions. Imagine our surprise, Deadeye continues, drawing a crude gallows in the molasses, finding out Lightning Hawkins' widow had connections to the Millbrook Bank. She wasn't just some shopkeeper's wife, was she? 20 years we thought we were hunting a ghost when all along. He lets the words hang in the air like smoke. She was building a case against every gang from here to Mexico. The pieces fall into place with devastating clarity. Sarah's frequent trips to Millbrook, her careful record-keeping, the mysterious correspondence she maintained until her death, the way she'd insisted on handling the store's banking herself, the strange visitors who'd come after dark, men and women who spoke in whispers and left before dawn. She'd been building a case, gathering evidence against the remnants of the gangs that once terrorized the territories. While Clay had buried his past, she'd been waging a different kind of war. Buck finally wrenches his club free, sending splinters flying across the counter. "Boss, the sun's almost down. Town's too quiet." His voice carries an edge of nervousness. Even career killers feel the weight of approaching darkness. Behind him, Jake, the snake, fingers his knife, eyes darting between shadows. Deadeye mods, wiping his molasses-stained finger on Clay's ledger. "See? Here's how this plays out. You tell us where the strongbox is, or we tear this place apart. Board by board, piece by piece. Every floorboard, every wall, every memory you and Sarah built." He gestures to the street where shadows move between buildings like hunting wolves. "We got men watching every friend you've made in 20 years. Old man Peterson at the livery, still mucking stalls despite his bad hip. The Wilson kids at the schoolhouse practicing their letters. Even that pretty widow Morrison who brings you pie every Sunday thinking she might warm your bed someday." Clay feels the weight of 2 decades of peace crumbling like sand through an hourglass. Sarah had been more than his redemption. She'd been a warrior in her own right, fighting with ledgers and letters instead of guns. And now her final battle was becoming his, whether he wanted it or not. Her last words take on new meaning. "Protect the store, Clay. Promise me." "You've got it wrong," Clay says, but his voice lacks conviction. The broom in his hands feels inadequate against the tide of violence about to break. Upstairs, his Colt calls stronger than ever, singing songs of lead and justice from beneath the floorboards Sarah once walked. The same floorboards that might hold more secrets than just his gun. Deadeye's smile is sharp as a knife in the growing darkness. "No, old man. For once we got it exactly right. Lightning Hawkins' legend dies tonight one way or another. But first..." He draws his gun with practiced grace, the metal catching the last light of day. "First you're going to give us what Sarah died protecting, and then we'll send you to meet her, nice and slow." In the fading light, Clay watches Deadeye's finger tighten on the trigger. The store seems smaller now, closing in like a trap. But something catches his eye. The way Deadeye holds his gun, slightly angled to the left. The way he favors his right leg, barely noticeable unless you know what to look for. 20 years of observation haven't dulled Clay's instincts. They've sharpened them. "That wound in your shoulder giving you trouble?" Clay asks quietly, his shopkeeper's facade slipping like sand through an hourglass. "The way you're compensating, it's throwing your aim off, about 3 inches to the left, I'd say. Been watching you flex that hand since you walked in. Getting stiffer by the minute, ain't it? Weather's changing. Makes old wounds sing." Deadeye's expression flickers, a mix of surprise and growing unease. The other men shift uneasily, sensing a change in the air like animals before a storm. "What did you say?" His voice carries a tremor that wasn't there before. "Bullet still in there, isn't it?" Too deep for a regular doctor to dig out. Clay's voice takes on a different tone, clinical, precise, like a man reading tracks in fresh snow. "Exit wounds clean, but entry point messy. Probably a ricochet. The kind that spins, tears up muscle on its way in. The kind that never lets you forget it's there. Happened during the Silver Creek raid, I'm guessing. About 3 years back?" The Murphy twins exchange glances, their confidence wavering like a flame in the wind. Tom's hand strays to his own shoulder where a similar wound lies hidden beneath his coat. Deadeye's gun hand trembles slightly, imperceptible to most, but clear as daylight to Clay's trained eyes. Years of watching men handle weapons had taught him to read pain like others read books. 20 years watching men handle guns, Clay continues, setting the broom aside with deliberate care. You learn to read the signs, how they stand, how they draw. Every wound leaves its mark, changes the way a man moves, the way he shoots, like a book written in flesh and bone. He steps around the counter, movements fluid despite his age, each step calculated and precise. Take Buck here, that club he favors. It's because he can't pull a trigger properly anymore, not since that shotgun blast took his 3 fingers. Left hand strong, but the balance is off. Makes you telegraph your moves. You try to hide it, but I've seen how you grab things, always leading with the thumb, protecting what's left. Buck growls, hiding his mangled right hand behind his back like a shameful secret. Clay's words hit their mark as surely as any bullet. The atmosphere in the store shifts, power dynamics realigning like storm clouds before lightning strikes. The air grows thick with tension and the metallic taste of fear. And there's Jake. Clay nods toward the scarred man by the door. Favoring your left side. Knife wound, probably. Deep enough to nick a rib. Makes you hesitate just a fraction when you draw. Enough to get a man killed. You compensate by standing sideways, protecting that weak spot. But it slows your draw by half a second. Mexican border town, wasn't it? 3 years back? During that cattle-rustling mess? Jake's face darkens, his hand instinctively touching his side where an old blade had carved its memory. The wound throbs with phantom pain, a reminder of a fight he barely survived. His eyes narrow, dangerous as a cornered wolf. You've been watching us, Deadeye realizes, his earlier confidence wavering like a mirage. All these years, reading us like one of your ledger books, studying our weaknesses, learning our tells. Clay shakes his head, a gesture both gentle and final. Not watching. Seeing. It's what kept me alive all those years as Lightning Hawkins. Understanding how men move, how they fight, how wounds change them, how pain shapes them. He takes another step forward, his presence filling the space like smoke. You think running a store made me forget? Every customer who walks in, I see their story written in their stance, their stride, their scars. 20 years of reading men's pain, learning its language, every limp, every favor, every hesitation tells a story. The setting sun paints shadows across the floor, each one telling its own tale of violence and survival. Through the window, Clay notices more of Deadeye's men shifting positions, but now he sees them differently. Not just threats, but puzzles of pain and compensation, each movement a story of past violence. The twins, Clay continues, his voice carrying to every corner of the store like a church bell. Jim leads with his left foot, the old break never healed right, probably from jumping off a horse during that bank job in Carson City. Tom overreaches when he draws. Shoulder wound makes him compensate too much. Both of them are deadly, but both of them predictable. Like watching a dance where you know all the steps. Deadeye's men exchange uneasy glances as Clay's words sink in. The old shopkeeper's expertise has stripped away their confidence like paint in a sandstorm. But Deadeye's face hardens, his grip tightening on his gun despite the tremor in his wounded shoulder. Impressive party trick, old man. Reading our wounds like tea leaves. He takes a deliberate step forward, boots crunching on broken glass. But knowing where we hurt doesn't change the fact that you're outnumbered. 9 guns against 1 broom. And all your knowledge won't stop a bullet. Clay's eyes track each man's position, calculating angles and distances with the precision of a master surveyor. The Murphy twins have shifted closer to the ammunition shelf, their matching gun belts gleaming dully in the fading light. Jake edges toward the back door, his scarred face half hidden in shadow. The evening light streaming through the windows turns the store into a maze of dark corners and golden bands, each shadow potentially hiding death. 9 guns, Clay acknowledges, his voice carrying the weight of decades of observation. Each one compensates for old wounds. Each one a fraction too slow, a degree off target. His quiet certainty makes even Buck pause in his restless pacing. You ever wonder why Lightning Hawkins could take down 6 men before they cleared leather? Wasn't speed. Was knowing exactly how each man would move before he moved. Deadeye's wounded shoulder twitches involuntarily at the name. That was 20 years ago. You're older now. Slower. Time makes fools of us all. Older? Yes. Slower? Maybe. Clay moves away from the counter, each step precise as a cat stalking prey. But I've had 20 years to study men like you. Every gunslinger, every desperado who's walked through that door, I've read their bodies like books, learned their stories in the way they favor an arm, shift their weight, grip their guns. Every scar, every limp, every hesitation tells a tale of violence and survival. Through the window, Clay spots movement in the shadows between buildings, more of Deadeye's men, positioning themselves for what's coming. Old man Peterson hurries past, head down, leading his horse toward the livery stable. The street empties like a river running dry, townspeople sensing the coming storm. Tell me something. Clay continues, his voice carrying to every corner of the store. That bullet in your shoulder, does it burn when you raise your arm past shoulder height? Make your fingers go numb when you try to fan the hammer? He takes another step, closing the distance between them. And Tom, that wound in your shoulder pulls to the right when you draw, doesn't it? Makes you compensate by starting your draw early. Been watching you adjust your holster all evening, trying to find the right angle. Tom's hand instinctively moves to his holster, but his brother grabs his arm. They've seen enough to know Clay isn't bluffing. Each word hits with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, cutting through their bravado to expose the fear beneath. Knowledge ain't action, Deadeye snarls, but there's a new tension in his voice. You've spent 20 years playing shopkeeper, counting pennies and measuring coffee beans. We've spent those years killing, making widows and orphans. You really think knowing our weaknesses makes you strong enough to stop us? Clay's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his stance, subtle as a rattler coiling before it strikes. I haven't spent 20 years playing anything. I've spent them learning. Every customer who walked through that door taught me something. Every injury, every old wound, every compensation. It's all written in the way men move, the way they prepare to kill or die. The tension in the room builds like pressure before a storm. Deadeye's men have spread out, creating clear firing lines, but their movements betray uncertainty. They came expecting to find an old shopkeeper, not a man who can read their weaknesses like wanted posters. Behind them, through the window, the sun touches the horizon. Long shadows stretch across the floor like reaching fingers, and the store's clock strikes the hour with a sound like a hammer on coffin nails. "Last chance," Deadeye says, but his gun hand trembles slightly. "Tell us where Sarah's strongbox is, or we start with your knees and work our way up. See how well you read men when you're screaming." Clay's eyes meet Deadeye's, and for a moment the facade of the simple shopkeeper falls away completely. In its place stands something older, something that makes even Jake the Snake step back. The air in the store grows cold despite the evening heat. You want to know what else I learned in 20 years? Clay's voice drops lower, carrying the weight of countless observed battles. I learned that men who favor their wounds, who let old hurts guide their guns, they're already beaten. They just don't know it yet. And right now, every one of you is telegraphing your next move like amateurs at a county fair shooting gallery. The store's atmosphere grows heavier as Clay's words sink in. Deadeye shifts his weight, the floorboards creaking beneath his boots. Fine. You can read our wounds, but that doesn't change what happens next. Clay moves with deliberate slowness, hands still empty. Let's assess your situation, shall we? His voice carries the same tone he uses when explaining accounts to customers. 9 men, all carrying old wounds that slow you down. Tom Murphy, Your right shoulder means you'll draw high. Jim, that leg makes you pivot slow. Jake's side wound leaves his left exposed. Buck spits on the floor, tobacco juice staining the wooden boards. Talk all you want, old man. We still got you surrounded. Do you? Clay's eyes sweep the store, taking in every detail like a master chess player studying the board. You've positioned yourselves all wrong. Jake by the back door. Smart move if I was planning to run, but I'm not. The twins by the ammunition shelf. Tactical mistake. Too much distance between you and Deadeye. Can't cover each other properly. You're spread thin, like butter scraped over too much bread. Deadeye's face darkens like a thundercloud. You questioning my leadership, old-timer? 20 years of playing shopkeeper made you think you're some kind of tactical genius? Not questioning, observing. Clay takes another step, positioning himself between two oil lamps. Their light catches his wedding band, a golden reminder of promises made and kept. 3 men outside the front window, 2 at the back, but they're too far apart. Can't support each other if trouble starts. Amateur mistake, the kind that gets men killed. Your outside men are nervous too, clustering together instead of maintaining their positions. Fear makes men bunch up like cattle before a storm. The Murphy twins exchange glances, years of partnership letting them communicate without words. Jim's hand strays to his gun, but Tom shakes his head slightly. They've seen enough gunfights to recognize a dangerous man when they see one, and something in Clay's stance sets off warning bells in their minds. Your men are tired, Clay continues, his voice steady as a mountain stream. Been riding hard for days, haven't you? Following Sarah's trail of breadcrumbs. She led you here step by step, each clue drawing you closer. Never occurred to you to ask why? Never wondered if you were being played like a fiddle at a barn dance? Deadeye's wounded shoulder twitches and he unconsciously rolls it to ease the pain. Shut up. You're just buying time. The deed transfer was the final piece, but did you stop to wonder who forged my signature? Who had access to the town records? Who knew exactly what would bring the Shadow Creek gang running? Clay's words cut through the tension like a razor. Sarah didn't just keep records. She built a trap, 20 years in the making. Every detail planned, every move calculated. She knew men like you can't resist a mystery, can't walk away from a challenge to your pride. Through the window, the last rays of sun paint the sky blood red. Clay notices how the outside men have unconsciously bunched together, seeking safety in numbers. Inside, the air grows thick with uncertainty, heavy as storm clouds before lightning strikes. Look at your men, Deadeye. Really look at them. Clay gestures with his empty hands, each movement precise and measured. Buck's fingers are cramping from gripping that club, old injuries acting up in the evening air. Jake's breathing heavy, ribs still giving him trouble from that knife fight. The twins are favoring their strong sides, leaving gaps in your coverage. Every man here is fighting his own body as much as he's fighting me. Deadeye's gun wavers slightly, the tremor in his hand more pronounced. You trying to talk us to death, old man? Think you can lecture your way out of this? I'm giving you a chance more than you deserve. Clay's voice hardens like steel in quenching oil. Sarah knew what she was doing. Known gang members in town, threatening a shopkeeper in broad daylight. The sheriff's probably already been notified. Reinforcements from Fort Sterling could arrive any minute. You think Sarah didn't plan for this? Think she didn't have friends in high places? The mention of Fort Sterling sends a ripple through the men like wind through prairie grass. Fort Sterling's cavalry unit is notorious for their efficiency in dealing with outlaws, and their commander owes Sarah a debt from years back. You're bluffing, Deadeye snarls, but doubt creeps into his voice like poison in a wound, trying to scare us with tales of cavalry and conspiracies. Am I? 20 years, Deadeye, 20 years of Sarah building her case, gathering evidence, 20 years of me watching, learning, and understanding how men like you think and move. Clay's eyes lock onto Deadeye's, hard as mountain flint. You're not just surrounded by your own men's weaknesses. You're surrounded by Sarah's plans laid out like a spider's web, and you walked right into it, proud and blind as a strutting tom turkey. The tension in Maggie's general store crystallized as Clay's words about Sarah's trap sank in. Evening shadows stretch across worn floorboards, while oil lamps cast flickering light on nervous faces. Deadeye's gun hand trembles slightly, the pain in his shoulder becoming more evident with each passing moment. "You know what's funny?" Clay says, moving with careful precision toward the counter. "Sarah kept a journal about every man who walked into this store. Notes about their injuries, their habits, their tells. Said it was for inventory purposes. 20 years of observations, all written in her precise hand." Deadeye's eyes narrow, but curiosity flickers beneath his hardened exterior. "You expect us to believe she was some kind of mastermind?" "She was smarter than any of us," Clay responds, reaching slowly for a leather-bound book beneath the counter. Its spine is cracked with use, pages yellow with age, but clearly well-preserved. "Take your shoulder wound. 3 years ago you came in here, bought supplies, ammunition, coffee, tobacco. Sarah noticed how you favored that arm. Made a note. Right deltoid injury, likely bullet wound. Compensation pattern suggests ricochet damage to muscle tissue." The book lies closed on the counter, its worn leather reflecting the lamplight. Deadeye stares at it, recognition flickering across his face like lightning in a distant storm. "That day, she offered me liniment. Said it would help with the pain. She helped everybody who came through that door," Clay continues, his voice softening with memory. "Kept detailed records of their hurts, their needs. The liniment she gave you, special blend. Made it herself. Said a man in pain is more likely to draw quickly and die young. She couldn't bear to see anyone suffer, even those who might deserve it." Buck shifts uncomfortably, his maimed hand flexing unconsciously as he remembers his own encounter with Sarah's kindness. "The salve for my hand. After the shotgun, she didn't even charge me for it. Sarah's own recipe," Clay confirms, running his fingers along the journal's spine. "Mixed herbs from her garden with Mexican healing oils. She gave it to you for free, didn't she? Said no man should suffer if she could help it. Spent hours in that garden, growing plants most folks around here had never heard of." The Murphy twins exchange glances, a shared memory passing between them. Tom touches his shoulder unconsciously, while Jim's weight shifts off his bad leg. "The tea," Tom murmurs. "For the wound fever, she knew exactly. What herbs would bring down the inflammation? Yeah, she did." Clay's hand rests on the journal, feeling the texture of years of careful observations. "Sarah didn't just track your movements. She tried to heal you. Every one of you. Said maybe if she could ease your pain, you'd choose a different path. She believed that sometimes violence comes from hurting too much for too long." Jake steps away from the door, his scarred face troubled by memories he'd rather forget. "After that knife fight, she stitched me up. Didn't ask questions, didn't call the sheriff, even made sure the scar wouldn't pull so bad when it healed. Because she believed every man deserved a chance at redemption," Clay says quietly, authority in his gentleness. "Even those who'd lost their way. The strongbox you're looking for? It's not just evidence against you. It's evidence of her belief that you could be better men. Every entry in this journal shows it." Deadeye's gun lowers slightly, the weight of memory heavier than any weapon. "She treated us like we were worth saving. Nobody else ever did that." "That's who Sarah was," Clay responds, opening the journal carefully to reveal page after page of precise handwriting. "Every entry shows it, not just your wounds and weaknesses, but your strengths too, your possibilities." He turns pages gently, treating them with the same care Sarah once showed to wounded men. "Here. Deadeye Marcus, steady hand despite injury. Good with horses. Showed kindness to a stray dog. She saw the good in you, even when you couldn't see it yourselves." The store falls silent except for the ticking clock. Outside, the last rays of sun paint the sky in gentle purples and golds. The moment hangs suspended, like a drop of water before it falls. "The strong box," Clay continues, contains 20 years of Sarah's hope for you. 20 years of believing that men can change, that violence isn't the only answer. He looks up at Deadeye. She knew you'd come for it eventually. I know what kind of men you are, but she also knew what kind of men you could be. Deadeye's wounded shoulder slumps. She was wrong about us. We're too far gone. Are you? Clay asks softly. The fact that you're standing here, remembering her kindness, and that says something different. His fingers trace Sarah's handwriting. She believed in second chances. Question is, do you? The weight of 20 years settles around them like dust after a storm. Clay turns another page in the journal, revealing more of Sarah's careful observations. Look here, notes about your children, Deadeye. How you sent money home to them. Sarah kept track of that too. Said a man who remembers his family ain't completely lost. Buck moves closer, his club lowering. She remembered everything. Every hurt, every healing. Because she understood that every man's story is written in his scars, Clay says, his voice carrying to the rafters. And she believed those stories weren't finished yet, not while there was still a chance to choose differently. The Murphy twins holster their guns almost unconsciously. Tom speaks first, his voice rough with emotion. On Christmas, she gave us those scarves, said the winters were getting colder and her boys needed to stay warm. Her boys, Jim echoes. That's what she called us, like we were family. Jake runs a hand over his scarred face. She kept our secrets, all of them, could have turned us in 100 times, but she didn't. Because she was playing a longer game, Clay explains, closing the journal gently. Building something stronger than fear or revenge. She was building trust. One kindness at a time. One healing at a time. One story at a time. Deadeye's gun finally lowers completely. We came here for evidence, for revenge, but she... His voice breaks slightly. She already had her revenge, didn't she? Making us remember we were human. Clay nods slowly. That was Sarah's real legacy, not the strongbox, not the evidence, but the proof that even the hardest men can change, if someone believes in them enough. The evening light softens, turning the store's interior golden. The tension that had filled the space begins to transform into something else, something Sarah might have recognized as hope. Deadeye stares at the closed journal, his gun hanging loose at his side. So what happens now, old man? You've shown us Sarah's kindness, reminded us what we lost. But that doesn't change why we're here. Clay places his hand flat on the counter, wedding band catching the lamplight. Sarah's strongbox. You want to know what's really in it? More than just evidence. She kept something for each of you. Insurance, she called it, protection. The Murphy twins straighten. Interest peaked. Protection? From what? From the men above you. The ones who really control the Shadow Creek gang. Clay's eyes fix on Deadeye. You think you're in charge, but Sarah knew better. Knew about the banker in Millbrook, the judge in Carson City, the men who keep their hands clean while you do their dirty work. Deadeye's face pales slightly. How did she... 20 years of watching, listening, building a case not just against you, but against them, the ones who profit from your violence. Clay moves toward the stairs, each step measured. She kept records of every transaction, every connection, every secret meeting. Buck grips his club tighter. You're saying... I'm saying Sarah protected you the only way she knew how, by gathering enough evidence to bring down the men who own you. Men who'd rather see you dead than risk exposure. Clay reaches the bottom step. That's why they sent you here, not to find evidence against yourselves, to destroy evidence against them. The room grows still as this revelation settles. Jake moves away from the door, understanding dawning on his scarred face. The banker, he was awfully eager for us to burn everything. Sarah knew they'd send you eventually. Known killers, wanted men, perfect scapegoats if anything went wrong. Clay's voice carries years of bottled anger. But she prepared for that too. Made copies. Send them to people she trusted. If anything happens to that strongbox, the copies go public, Tom Murphy whispers, realizing hitting like a bullet. And not just the evidence against the bankers and judges, but proof that you were used, manipulated, forced into violence by men who never dirtied their own hands. Clay takes another step up. Sarah's final gift to you, a chance to break free. Deadeye's wounded shoulder slumps. We're trapped either way. Get the strongbox, we're disposed of. Don't get it. Unless, Clay interrupts, we play this smart, like Sarah would have wanted. The evening light fades further, oil lamps casting long shadows on worried faces. Outside, horses stamp nervously, sensing their riders' unease. Sarah left instructions, Clay continues. A way to use her evidence to protect you. Give you new identities, fresh starts. All you have to do is trust her. One last time. The Murphy twins exchange glances. Jim speaks first. Those men, they've got our families under watch. Sarah thought of that too. Clay nods toward the journal. Every detail, every contingency. She spent 20 years not just gathering evidence, but building a network. People who owed her favors. People who believed in second chances. Deadeye's gun hand trembles. Why would she do all this? For men like us. Because she saw what I couldn't. That revenge isn't about punishment. It's about redemption. Clay reaches the middle of the stairs. The strongbox isn't just evidence, it's a key. A key to your freedom. Buck's club clatters to the floor. 20 years? She spent 20 years planning our escape? Sarah always said the greatest revenge is helping your enemies become better men. Clay's voice softens with memory. She believed you were worth saving. Question is, do you believe it too? The strongbox doesn't just hold evidence, Clay continues, ascending another step. It holds proof of who ordered every raid, every robbery, bank transfers, letters, meeting dates. Sarah tracked it all. She even kept records of where the real money went. Not to you, but to their accounts in New York and Chicago. Jake moves closer to the stairs. The judge, he always knew when to expect us, like he was timing it. Because he was, Clay confirms. Sarah found the patterns. The banks they wanted hit were ones refusing to sell. The ranches that got raided were ones sitting on land they wanted. You weren't just outlaws, you were their weapons. Deadeye's face darkens with understanding. The Silver Creek job. Town refused to sell water rights. Week later, a mysterious gang burns down the municipal building with all the deeds inside. Clay nods grimly. Convenient timing for certain investors, wasn't it? The Murphy twins share another look. Tom speaks up. What about Carson City? The railway station. Railway companies wouldn't sell their line. Then you boys showed up, making it too dangerous to operate. Stock price plummeted. Clay's voice carries bitter knowledge. A month later, the judge's brother-in-law bought it for pennies on the dollar. Buck slumps against the counter. We were just hired guns. Never knew who was really pulling the trigger. But Sarah knew. Keep every detail. Every connection. Clay reaches the top of the stairs. The strongbox has enough to bring down 3 territorial judges, 2 bank presidents, and half the landowners in the territory. Men who've been using you as their personal army. Deadeye follows Clay's movement. If what you're saying is true, they'll kill us all, our families too. Unless we move first. Sarah's network, it's not just evidence, it's people. Marshal in Fort Sterling, telegraph operator in Carson City, newspaper editor in Denver. Clay's hand rests on the banister. All waiting for a signal. One telegram, and your families disappear. New names, new lives, before anyone knows they're gone. The store grows darker as night approaches. Oil lamps cast dancing shadows on worried faces as the magnitude of Sarah's planning sinks in. Tomorrow morning, those men expect you to bring them a strongbox, proof you've eliminated their loose ends. Clay's voice carries quiet authority. Instead, we can give them something else. Something Sarah spent 20 years preparing for. Justice, Jake whispers, his scarred face reflecting lamplight. Better than justice, freedom? Clay reaches the top of the stairs. But first we need to trust each other the way Sarah trusted you all along. Clay stands at the top of the stairs, his hand resting on the worn banister. The floorboard concealing his Colt 45 lies just steps away, but another path beckons, the one Sarah laid out 20 years ago. The strong box is in my bedroom, he says, voice carrying down to the men below. But before we get to that, you need to understand exactly what Sarah left for you. Deadeye takes a step toward the stairs, his gun still lowered. Show us. Clay moves to a faded painting on the wall, a landscape Sarah had loved. Behind it sits an old wall safe, its dial gleaming dully in the lamplight. Sarah kept more than one strongbox. This one holds your new papers, identities she crafted over years, building them like she built this store, piece by piece. The Murphy twins edge closer to the stairs, while Jake and Buck watch the windows. The street outside has grown dark, but occasional movements betray the presence of more gang members. Why should we trust you? Deadeye asks, though his voice lacks its earlier menace. Because Sarah trusted you first. Clay's fingers find the combination, not numbers, but a pattern Sarah had based on constellations she loved. She could have turned you in years ago. Instead, she protected you. Gather evidence against your real enemies. Build you an escape route. One careful step at a time. The safe clicks open, revealing stacks of carefully organized papers. Clay removes them with reverence. New identities for every one of you. Bank drafts that can't be traced. Property deeds in your new names. Even letters of recommendation from respected businessmen. Sarah's network runs deep. Deadeye climbs the stairs slowly, his wounded shoulder making each step an effort. Let me see. Clay hands him a packet of papers. Thomas Richardson, your new identity. Owner of a horse ranch in Oregon Territory. Everything's legitimate, filed with territorial offices over the past 5 years. Sarah built your story slowly, making it solid. Deadeye's hands tremble as he reads. My boys. She included them too? Every detail, school records, vaccination papers, everything they'd need to start fresh. Clay turns to the others. She did the same for all of you. Buck, she got you papers as a freight company owner. Jake, a silver mine stake in Montana. The twins, a cattle operation in Texas. The men exchange glances, hope warring with suspicion. Tom Murphy speaks first. What's the catch? The evidence against the men controlling you goes public. All of it. Clay's voice hardens. Sarah's network is ready. One telegram sends everything to newspapers across the territory. The judges, bankers, all of them, they fall hard. They'll hunt us down, Jake protests. Not if you're already gone. New names, new lives, established over years. Clay gestures to the papers. While they're facing trials and ruin, you'll be respectable businessmen in different territories. Sarah made sure every identity would stand up to scrutiny. Deadeye stares at his new papers. What about you? After this, so I'll do what Sarah wanted. Make sure justice finds the right targets. Clay moves toward the bedroom. But first, we need what's in that strongbox. The final piece of Sarah's plan. Clay moves toward the bedroom door, then pauses. But before we get there, you need to make a choice. Real choice, not one forced on you by men in fancy offices. He turns back to face Deadeye, whose face is illuminated by the flickering lamplight. Sarah left detailed instructions, time-sensitive ones, her network's waiting for signals, different ones depending on what happens here tonight. Buck shifts nervously below. What kind of signals? 3 telegrams ready to go. First one alerts her network to extract your families. Get them to safety before anyone knows they're gone. Second, tell her newspaper contacts to publish everything, all the evidence against the men who've been using you. Third ... Clay pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in. Third is to the marshal's office. Give them everything they need to protect you and your families while you testify. The room grows quiet enough to hear the clock ticking downstairs. Jake breaks the silence. Testify? Optional. Sarah knew some of you might want more than just escape. Might want to face them in court, tell the truth about what they made you do. Clay's eyes meet each man's gaze. She left the choice to you. Each man decides for himself. The Murphy twins confer in whispers. Tom speaks up. What about the men outside? They're still loyal to the bosses. Sarah thought of that too. Clay moves to another painting, this one of the town at sunset. Behind it hangs a mirror positioned to reflect the street below. She chose this building for a reason. Backroom has sight lines to every approach, roof access hidden from the street, emergency supplies stashed in the cellar. She turned this store into a fortress right under everyone's noses. Deadeye studies his new papers again, running his fingers over the embossed seals. 20 years of planning. All for this moment. She believed in redemption, Deadeye. Believed men could change if given a real choice. Clay's voice softens. But it has to be your decision. Each of you. Stay trapped under their control, or take the path Sarah built for you. The night deepens outside, stars appearing one by one. In the store, each man wrestles with decades of loyalty and fear, weighing them against the promise of freedom. Jake touches his scarred face. If we do this, if we choose Sarah's way, what's our first move? We get that strongbox, Clay answers, but not to destroy it, to use it. Sarah left instructions for each step, timing, signals, rendezvous points, 20 years of planning, ready to unfold. He looks at Deadeye. She just needed you all to be ready. The bedroom door creaks open, revealing shadows and silver moonlight streaming through lace curtains Sarah had hung years ago. Clay moves with practiced ease through the darkness, his footsteps silent on the wooden floor. Behind him, Deadeye and the others wait, tension building like a storm about to break. The strongbox isn't in here, Clay says quietly, moving toward a hope chest beneath the window. But the key is Sarah had a system. Never keep important things in obvious places. He kneels before the chest, its wood worn smooth by years of use. Inside, beneath quilt Sarah had sewn, lies a small brass key attached to a leather cord. Clay lifts it carefully, memories flowing through his fingers. Sarah wore this around her neck, he explains, standing. Said keeping it close to her heart reminded her of its purpose. Wasn't just about evidence, was about redemption. Deadeye watches from the doorway, his gun now holstered. The pain in his shoulder seems to have intensified with the night's revelations. Where's the box, then? Clay moves to the window, looking out at the town Sarah had helped build. Think about it. Where would a woman who believed in second chances keep her most important work? The Murphy twins exchange glances before Tom speaks up. The church. Close. Clay turns, the key catching moonlight. The schoolhouse. Sarah always said education was the surest path to redemption. She kept the strongbox in a special compartment under the floorboards of her classroom. Jake's scarred face shows surprise. She was the school teacher too? 3 days a week. Taught reading, writing, and arithmetic to anyone willing to learn. Clay's voice carries pride. Even taught some of your men, didn't she? Those nights they'd come to the back door, ashamed but hungry for knowledge. Buck looks down, remembering. She taught me my letters. Never tell nobody. Because she knew the power of secrets, both keeping them and revealing them at the right time. Clay moves toward the door. Like now, the strongbox isn't just evidence anymore. It's leverage, power, but not the kind that comes from fear. Deadeye steps aside, letting Clay pass. The kind that comes from truth. The group descends the stairs, their movements now coordinated rather than confrontational. The store's main room feels different. No longer a battlefield, but a staging ground for something unprecedented. Here's where it gets complicated, Clay says, reaching the bottom step. Sarah's plan requires perfect timing. The strongbox, the telegrams, your family's evacuation. Everything has to happen in sequence. Outside, the night has fully settled, stars piercing the darkness like distant gunshots. The men positioned around the store shift restlessly, unaware of the changing dynamics within. You're not just choosing freedom, Clay continues. You're choosing to be part of something bigger. Something Sarah spent her life building. A chance to turn the tables on the real criminals. The Murphy twins check their guns, not in threat, but in preparation. Jake moves to the window, his stance now protective rather than predatory. Buck sets his club aside, flexing his damaged hand as if preparing for more delicate work. Deadeye steps forward, authority shifting from his gun to his voice. Tell us the plan. All of it. Clay moves to Sarah's journal, still lying open on the counter. First, we need to secure your families. Sarah has safe houses prepared across 3 territories. The moment we move, her network activates. Stagecoach is ready, papers prepared, routes planned to avoid official checkpoints. He turns to another page, revealing detailed maps and schedules. Your wives, children, they'll be moved in different groups. Harder to track. Each route is designed to look like normal traffic. Traders, settlers, regular folks heading west. The Murphy twins study the maps intently. Jim traces a route with his finger. These way stations, they're all marked. Sarah's people run them. Been in place for years, waiting. Clay points to specific locations. General stores, livery stables, small farms. Places that don't draw attention. Each one is ready to provide food, fresh horses, and shelter. Jake moves from his position by the window. What about the men outside? And the ones watching our families? That's where timing becomes crucial. Clay's voice takes on a tactical edge. The telegraph operator in town. He's part of Sarah's network. One message from him sets everything in motion. By dawn, your families will be gone. The evidence will be in the right hands, and the men who've been controlling you will be scrambling to save themselves. Deadeye leans against the counter, his wounded shoulder finally getting the better of him. And us? We split into 3 groups. First group retrieves the strongbox from the school. Second group creates a diversion. Make those men outside think we're still negotiating. Third group slips out through the cellar tunnel Sarah had built years ago. Clay's eyes sweep the room. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, we'll be long gone. Buck examines his mangled hand in the lamplight. What about the men outside? They're our friends, too. Sarah thought of them as well. Left packages for each one. Same as you. New identities, fresh starts. They just need to choose like you did. Clay moves to the store's back door, checking the lock. Question is, who goes where? Who does what? The power in the room has shifted completely now. These men who entered as threats now stand as allies in an intricate plan 2 decades in the making. Each one weighs their role in what's to come, measuring their skills against the tasks at hand. Clay stands by Sarah's journal, moonlight streaming through the windows as he outlines the final stages of her plan. For this to work, we move in precise steps. Like a dance, but one where a single misstep could cost lives. Deadeye organizes his men with newfound purpose. The twins are our best shots. They should cover the strongbox retrieval. Jake knows how to move quietly. He leads the tunnel group. The tunnel comes out behind the livery, Clay explains, sketching a rough map on blank ledger paper. Sarah had it dug during the store's renovation. Old Mexican mine diggers, men who knew how to make tunnels that last. They're all part of her network now. Buck examines the cellar entrance. What about the men outside? The moment they realize something's wrong, that's where the diversion comes in. Clay moves to the front window, checking positions. Sarah left a cache of theatrical supplies in the cellar. Flash powder, smoke generators, tools that make a small force look larger. We make them focus on the front while we move through the back. The Murphy twins position themselves near the stairs. Tom checks his ammunition while Jim watches the street. How long does it take to get to the schoolhouse? 3 minutes through the alley, another 2 to retrieve the box. Clay's fingers traced the road on his map. Sarah marked the exact floorboard, 3 rows back, 5 boards from the east wall, release catch hidden in the chalk tray. Deadeye studies the positions of his outside men through the window. They're getting nervous, won't stay quiet much longer. Then we start now. Clay moves to the counter, retrieving more of Sarah's hidden supplies. Buck, you and Jake check the tunnel. Make sure it's clear. Twins, get ready for the schoolhouse run. Deadeye, you coordinate the diversion. The men move with practiced efficiency. Years of working together now turned to a different purpose. Clay watches them, seeing Sarah's faith in redemption playing out before his eyes. Remember, he says, voice carrying quiet authority, timing is everything. The telegraph goes first. Signal to move your families. Then, the diversion starts. The strongbox team moves during the confusion. Tunnel team slips out in the chaos. Jake returns from the cellar, nodding. Tunnel's clear. The supporters look solid. Sarah had it maintained regularly. Call it cellar repairs on the ledgers. Clay begins distributing Sarah's theatrical supplies. These go at specific points. When they blow, it'll look like a small army's attacking the store. Deadeye positions his men, each one now understanding their role in a plan 20 years in the making. What about the strong box itself? Once we have it, split the contents, Clay explains. Evidence goes to Sarah's newspaper contacts. Your new papers stay with you. Everything else goes to the marshal's office, proof against the men who've been using you. The store, once a battleground, has transformed into a command center. Men who entered as enemies now work together, guided by the invisible hand of a woman who saw past their violence to the possibility of change. Buck sets up the flash powder charges near the windows. What about timing for the telegraph? One wrong move. Sarah choreographed every step, Clay says, pulling out another document. Operator sends the family evacuation signal first. 15 minutes later, evidence goes to the newspapers. By then, your families will be on the move, protected by Sarah's network. The Murphy twins finish checking their weapons. Tom adjusts his gun belt, compensating for his shoulder wound. And the strongbox route? Clay spreads out a detailed map of the town Sarah had drawn. Back alley behind Peterson's gives you cover most of the way. Sarah marked blind spots in the town's lighting. You'll move through shadows she mapped years ago. Deadeye examines the theatrical supplies with growing appreciation. She didn't leave anything to chance, did she? Not when it came to saving lives. Clay moves to help Buck with the charges. Each flash powder location corresponds to a different gang position outside. When they blow, it'll look like coordinated rifle fire from multiple positions. Jake returns from another tunnel check. Found more supplies cached along the route. Weapons, food, even fresh horses tied up behind the livery. Sarah believed in preparation, Clay explains. Every cache is matched to the men who'll need it. She knew your preferences, your needs, even packed specific medicines for old wounds. The store's clock strikes the hour, its chimes marking the beginning of their complex dance. Outside, the gang members shift positions, unaware they're about to become part of Sarah's final masterpiece. Deadeye makes one last check of his men's positions. Once this starts, there's no turning back. We commit completely. That's what Sarah was counting on, Clay responds, moving to the telegraph office's line of sight. She believed that given a real choice, you'd choose redemption. Just needed the right moment. The right plan. The men take their positions, years of violence about to be turned toward escape and justice. Clay looks at Sarah's journal one last time, seeing not just plans and observations but a legacy of hope and redemption about to unfold. The flash powder charges detonate in sequence, lighting up the night like artificial lightning. Inside Maggie's general store, Clay watches Sarah's plan unfold with clockwork precision. The Murphy twins move first, slipping out through shadows Sarah mapped years ago, their footsteps silent on paths she'd carefully noted, tracking the blind spots between street lamps and moonlight. The strongbox awaits in the schoolhouse, hidden beneath layers of normalcy, just as Sarah had hidden her true purpose behind a shopkeeper's smile. Jake leads the tunnel group, moving through the underground passage with the confidence of men, following a well-laid plan. Buck brings up the rear, his damaged hand now an asset as he triggers the prepared diversions with practiced care. Deadeye coordinates from the store's center, his wounded shoulder forgotten in the focus of the moment. Each explosion draws predictable responses from his outside men, their movements following patterns Sarah had observed and documented over years. Clay stands by the window watching the elaborate dance unfold. The telegraph office's light blinks, first signal sent. Somewhere in the darkness, stagecoaches are already moving, carrying precious cargo toward new lives. They're splitting up, Deadeye observes as his outside men react to the diversions. Just like she predicted. Sarah understood men under pressure, Clay responds, checking the time. Knew they'd divide their forces, try to surround what they thought was the threat, making them predictable. The night fills with shouts and confusion as more charges detonate. Through the chaos, Clay spots the twins reaching the schoolhouse. Their shadows merge with darkness as they disappear inside. Jake's group signals from the tunnel. 3 short flashes. They've reached the first checkpoint. Behind the livery, horses wait patiently, loaded with supplies chosen specifically for each man's needs. Second signal from the telegraph office, Deadeye notes. Evidence is moving. Clay nods, feeling the weight of 20 years lifting. Sarah's network is active now. No stopping it. The Strongbox team signals success, a brief glint of moonlight on the metal as they emerge from the schoolhouse. They move like ghosts through Sarah's mapped shadows, carrying 2 decades of careful planning. Deadeye's outside men continue responding to the diversions, unwittingly playing their parts in Sarah's final act. Each movement, each reaction, follows patterns she'd documented in her precise hand. Time for the last phase, Clay says, moving toward the cellar entrance. You ready? Deadeye takes a final look around the store, the place where everything changed. She really saw this coming? All of it. Sarah saw possibilities, Clay responds, leading the way down. In men, in circumstances, in redemption itself. She just needed us to see them too. The tunnel welcomes them with cool darkness. Behind them, the store continues its performance, flashes and sounds maintaining the illusion of conflict while salvation unfolds in silence. Clay feels Sarah's presence in every step, every detail of the escape. The tunnel's height perfectly accommodates Deadeye's wounded shoulder. The supports spaced to provide rest points for tired men. Even the airflow, carefully engineered to prevent panic in the darkness. They emerge behind the livery where horses wait, chosen for strength and stamina. Sarah's planning extends even here. Special saddles for injured men, medical supplies packed within easy reach. The night sky opens above them, stars marking paths to new lives. In the distance, the town's confusion continues. But here, in this moment of transformation, silence reigns. Deadeye mounts carefully, mindful of his shoulder. What happens to the store? What Sarah wanted, Clay responds, securing the strongbox. It becomes a different kind of sanctuary, a place where other men might find their way to redemption. The small group moves out, following trails Sarah mapped long ago. Behind them, Maggie's general store stands quiet, its role in their salvation complete. Clay and the men ride through shadows, each hoofbeat carrying them further from their old lives. Behind them, Maggie's general store continues its performance, flashes and sounds masking their escape. Your men back there, Clay says, guiding his horse along Sarah's mapped trail. They'll find messages waiting in their usual spots, same offer you got, new lives, fresh starts. Sarah believed in saving everyone she could. Deadeye rides beside him, the strongbox secure in his saddlebags. 20 years of planning? All for this moment. She built an escape route not just from the law, but from who we were. The night wraps around them like a cloak as they follow paths Sarah charted years ago. Each turn, each hidden trail, marked in her careful hand. Even the timing of their escape coincides with guard changes at territorial checkpoints, another detail in her intricate design. The Murphy twins ride point, their injuries now advantages as they spot patrol patterns Sarah documented. Jake and Buck bring up the rear, watching for signs of pursuit that, thanks to Sarah's diversions, hasn't materialized. First safe house is 3 hours ahead, Clay informs them, checking the stars. Sarah's contact there will have fresh horses, supplies, and updates on your family's movements. Deadeye adjusts his seat, shoulder aching. What about the men who owned us? The judges, bankers? By now, Sarah's evidence is reaching newspaper offices across 3 territories. Come morning, they'll be fighting for their own survival. Clay's voice carries satisfaction. Their empires built on others' violence, about to crumble from a schoolteacher's careful notes. The group rides in silence, each man processing the night's transformation. 20 years of being weapons for powerful men, ended by a woman who saw past their violence to the possibility of change. She never lost faith, Buck says quietly, his damaged hand gentle on the reins. Even when we were at our worst, she kept believing. The moon rises higher, illuminating the trail ahead. Somewhere in the darkness, stagecoaches carry precious cargo toward new lives. Telegraph wires hum with messages that will reshape territories. And Sarah's network moves in careful synchronization, turning plans into reality. This isn't just escape, Clay says as they crest a ridge. It's resurrection. Sarah didn't just save your lives. She saved your souls. Below them, the valley stretches out like a promise. Somewhere ahead, new identities wait. New lives built carefully over years by a woman who believed in second chances. The strongbox rests secure in Deadeye's saddlebags, its contents a key to both justice and redemption. Inside, Sarah's careful documentation will bring down the powerful and lift up the fallen. Dawn approaches as they ride, its first light touching the eastern sky. Behind them, Maggie's general store stands quiet, its role in their salvation complete. But its legacy, like Sarah's faith in redemption, lives on in each hoofbeat, carrying them toward tomorrow. 1 year later. Clay stands behind the counter of Maggie's general store, morning light streaming through new windows. The store has changed, expanded to include a small library where Sarah's old classroom books now rest, available to anyone seeking knowledge. A letter sits open before him, its pages covered in Deadeye's improved handwriting. Clay, ranch is doing well. Boys are in school, proper school like Sarah always wanted. Tom and Jim's cattle operation is 3 days' ride south. They stop by sometimes, share news. Buck's freight company handles our shipments, his hands better with the exercises Sarah documented. Jake's mine struck silver last month. Funny how things work out. The trials ended yesterday. Final verdict came down on Judge Harrison and the others. Sarah's evidence did exactly what she planned. 23 convictions. The territorial papers are calling it the biggest corruption bust in Western history. Nobody knows it started with a schoolteacher's journal. Our old boys, the ones who were outside that night, most of them took Sarah's offer, found their letters, followed her path. Some are working at my ranch now. Others spread out across the territories, living new lives she built for them. Sometimes I wake up thinking it was all a dream. Then I see my boys reading books from Sarah's collection and I remember. She saw something in us worth saving, when all we could see was darkness. The strongbox sits in my study now, empty of evidence but full of meaning. Reminder of how one person's faith can change everything. You were right about what she wrote in her journal about me. Man who sends money home to his children ain't completely lost. She saw the father in me before I did. Take care of the store. It's more than a building now. It's a lighthouse for lost souls. Thomas Richardson, still getting used to the new name. Clay folds the letter carefully, placing it in Sarah's journal. The store bell rings as new customers enter. A group of rough-looking men, trail dust thick on their coats. He recognizes the signs, the way they favor old wounds, how they scan for exits. Just like Sarah taught him. But now he sees something else too, the possibility of change in their eyes. Welcome to Maggie's, he says, reaching for Sarah's journal. Can I help you find something? One man steps forward, hand trembling slightly. Heard this place. Heard maybe a man could find a fresh start here. Clay opens the journal to a blank page, ready to continue Sarah's work. Let's talk about possibilities. In the corner, Sarah's rocking chair sits empty, but not abandoned. Her presence lives on in every word of her journal, every life changed, every soul redeemed. The store continues her legacy, not just a shop, but a sanctuary where second chances begin. Outside, the town has grown. New buildings rise where once there was only dust. But Maggie's general store remains unchanged at its heart. A place where hope outlives violence, where redemption starts with a simple choice. Clay picks up his pen, ready to write another chapter in Sarah's story of salvation. Through the window, morning light paints the world gold, the color of fresh starts and second chances. Take a seat, he tells the men, gesturing to chairs Sarah had placed for just this purpose. Let me tell you about a woman who believed in redemption. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.